Well, hello there, intentional streaming fans. Welcome to another edition. We have our co host, Jarvis,
Hey guys, what's up?
and myself, Flip, who we're knocking on wood, no more technical difficulties. Think we're through that for the night, maybe. One quick thing is you can always get a hold of us at INT Stream Pod. That's our Twitter account.
That's on the Twitter.
And our send us an email. Shoot us an email. Did you check our email this week, Jarvis?
Nothing.
Doggone it. Yeah. Maybe I'm giving out the wrong address here.
No, it's intentionalstreaming@gmail.com.
Okay. Well, maybe you're saying it right. Maybe, yeah. Who knows? So this week's edition, we're gonna hit some NFL news and notes, and then we're gonna get into some fun stuff. We're gonna get into the 2019 NFL class and teams that might be looking to draft them. We're of course not gonna go through the entire dumpster fire, but we will go over a number of them.
Yeah, this week we're going to be primarily just focusing on the quarterback position, just talk about some notable guys coming out of the draft and potential likely landing spots. What they bring to the table, what these teams can expect out of these guys when they take a chance on them. A couple of them in the first round, obviously.
Theoretically, if see how the combine plays out with that too. So, but this is our pre-combine version, so give us a little take us with a little grain of salt with this. So we'll definitely get more into that, when the draft gets closer. So let's hop into our news and notes for the week. You want to start us off, Jarvis?
Yeah, let's jump on over to we're going to go back to Cali. The Raiders. Guess what, Flip? They came out and said that they're going to be playing their 2019 home games in San Francisco.
That's a great spot for them, really. Being across the bay, their base is there, so it beats them playing in Oakland, which that's done and over with, or Mexico City or London or
wherever.
We're not even having home games, so.
Or going to a place like the Chargers at StubHub where they get like 25,000 people capacity.
Yes. That's pretty
So
bad.
if the Raiders can draw a crowd, they have a lot of room to fill there.
Yes.
So yeah, that's kind of cool to see. New home for the Raiders temporarily for this year until they get their permanent home next year in lovely Las Vegas. Another side note here, the Eagles quarterback Nick Foles is, in fact, buying his freedom for $2 million, voiding the new and final year on his contract. So, Flip, he's now a free agent unless Philly hits him with the almost $25 million franchise tag.
It's not a huge surprise. He is passing up $20 million and giving up $2 million on top of it to do that. It's not really much of a risky move. Will Philly actually throw the franchise tag on him? No, I don't think so.
Depends on how much they believe in Wentz.
Well, they're kind of in a bit of cap purgatory, being like 18 million over the cap, but with this that gets them actually under the cap. I just don't see it just to try to trade him away. I don't know. We'll see. Philly does some odd things.
Yeah,
or like you said, they might keep him.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, it's still really early to tell, but as of right now, it looks like he's wanting to potentially go elsewhere. A guy who doesn't want to go elsewhere, and surprisingly is eyeing a 2019 return, tight end Greg Olsen from the Panthers, coming back despite persistent foot injuries.
He's had, 2, 3, 4 surgeries over the last few weeks, couple of years.
And it's the same injury on the same foot.
He's had a really fantastic fantasy football career for a lot of us, but I don't know how you could, even if he went back to the Panthers, I don't think you could actually draft him with much confidence for your tight end one.
That type of injury is bound to come back again, so his heart's in the right place. I'll give him that. But there is a guy out there who's got a great foot, but just doesn't have a job. And that is kicker Matt Bryant. Falcons released him today.
Yeah, this is actually I think he might still be my dynasty kicker from. I've had him for eons, eons and eons. There was a report that Tampa Bay might be interested in him, which doesn't come as a surprise at all.
Oh, speaking of Tampa Bay, should we hit them with the conversation you and I were having the other day?
Which conversation would that be?
This goes back to a couple episodes ago where we were predicting where Lev Bell may be going.
Oh, well, I thought there was already a given that he was going to Tampa Bay.
So Jeff,
I thought the ink was already dry on the contract.
No. So Jeff Mann's a popular daily fantasy guy. He was privy to go to. He has a show on Sirius XM, and he was privy to go down to the Super Bowl and cover it down there. And while he was down there, he said that he was able to get some inside scoops and from a lot of different people. And buzz is around there that the Tampa Bay Bucks are just all in on going after Lev Bell. Now, right now, as it sits, they don't have a lot of cap room, Flip. So what they're what they're saying is that Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles, they don't really like the general direction of the defense and and how they played and how they're giving up all this. So what they're thinking is maybe just potentially, and this is all hearsay, word on the street. Obviously, this is not confirmed, but they're talking about potentially getting rid of some of those guys and clearing up some cap space to go to get Bell.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. There's nothing special about their defense. They do have some aging veterans thrown in with some possibly up and coming players. They also have a pretty expensive Deshaun Jackson on offense.
Is he coming back?
I'd say it's probably 50-50 right now. I think he kind of is warming up to it a bit. I don't know if he's going to force his way out. An interesting thing in Arizona was Arians selling Fitzgerald on moving to the slot, which he did. And
that worked out really well.
Thrived, yeah. Now, could Arians say the same thing with Deshaun Jackson, that he could thrive in the slot?
I think that's Adam Humphries' job.
Agreed, but Humphries is a free agent this year. So he's no lock to actually come back to Tampa.
But if you could get away with keeping Humphries there, paying him less money, and get a more productive person out of the slot, I would think they would go that way.
I'm gonna, if Bell goes there, that offense very well could be electrifying, depending on Jameis's turnovers.
That would be scary, that's for sure. Speaking of scary, what'd you think of the lack of Todd Gurley presence in the Super Bowl? Does that scare fantasy owners? Well, McVay did come out today and say that Gurley does not require off-season surgery, so that's good.
But he's not hurt, right?
Well, you don't hear anybody talking about it.
Is he hurt? Why would he require off-season surgery if he wasn't hurt?
That's the big thing. So there's something there, and they weren't upfront, honest, and forthright with everybody. They're trying to hide an injury. Clearly, there's something there if McVay comes out and says he does not require off-season surgery. So,
I know we don't have this to discuss it, but, let's throw out the Super Bowl for a little bit. Me personally, I love the Super Bowl. I love the defense of it. I did not like the New England winning outcome by any means.
Nor did I.
But they played some of the best defense I've seen them play all year long.
Yeah, and you have to tip the cap to both coaches for getting their defensive guys ready for this game. It, in my opinion, was incredibly boring to watch. Couple that with really lousy Super Bowl commercials and an abysmal halftime show. It wasn't a very fun Sunday for me, but it is what it is, and there is a lot to say about defensive battles, and we can say for sure that they had their guys ready on both sides of the ball.
And I like defensive battles, so I was, I'm always up for a good 6-3 battle, as long as it's not overly sloppy football, which I don't think it was. Personally, I don't think it was that sloppy of football.
But now, like in another sport, baseball, I'm a big defensive guy in baseball. So if you give me a 1-0 baseball game, I can appreciate that.
Never even heard of the sport before.
Stop it.
I think you've been bleeped out too for using the B word.
No. But anyway, on to
Anyway.
another injury situation. Flip, Darius Geis posted a video himself running at full speed in a straight line earlier today.
That's pretty good news, isn't
great
it,
news.
for the Geis owners?
That's great news.
Now, the bad news for the Geis owners is, will AP, be back? He just rushed for 1,000 yards.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Are they going to ride AP again? Are they going to give Geis the shot? That's going to be interesting to see.
I think it just comes down to how well Darius Geis is feeling at the beginning of the year, because if they're going to get that level of production out of AP, you might as well keep him in there for a while and give Geis a little bit more rest.
Agreed.
But we'll see what happens there. Bengals officially named former Rams QB coach Zach Taylor as their new head coach. We saw this coming from a mile away, but it just officially became official.
The 1A or 1B worst kept secret in the NFL.
Yeah.
and the other worst kept secret in the NFL?
Dolphins officially hire Patriots Brian Flores as their head coach.
Yeah, Flores spent the last season as the de facto DC of the Patriots. How much was he really involved in the play calling? It's tough to say. So this is going to be his first, first real big gig. We're seeing a lot of these, a lot of these teams aren't wanting to retread a lot of the old failure 60, 65-year-old coaches and would rather see what these 30, 35, 40-year-old something potentially will-be's will do.
I think everybody's still trying to duplicate what the Rams did in finding a McVay, which I think he had a bad Super Bowl game, by the way.
But, I find it crazy when you look at the old guy across the sidelines who just pumped out another Super Bowl win. Even though, you got to remember, Bill Belichick was a retread off of Cleveland. He was the Cleveland head coach for a couple of years, and they got rid of him. So, alrighty.
Yeah. Anything else you can think of?
It's fairly boring right now as far as news and notes. There's going to be some signings here and there, some releases in the next few weeks. Nothing major, but and.
Do we want to quickly talk about the Antonio Brown?
Yeah, I'd sooner punch myself in the face than talk about Antonio Brown.
How about we do both, and I can capture it on my video?
Okay. So Antonio Brown had the police call on him in January in Miami, in Florida. By the
Miami is in Florida, by the way.
Yeah. Well, it was the Hollywood Police Department.
Right.
And what broke today was his girlfriend, whatever, a strange girlfriend, I'm not sure what's going on, was coming to collect money for a haircut for a child. Not sure if it's his child or exactly whose, but she kind of put herself in the way of him closing the door, and he apparently shoved her and she fell down. And she spoke to the cops. She had some scrapes, apparently. They called for somebody to come and take pictures. In the meantime, she left and then refused to do a victim statement. It's just another altercation of Antonio Brown's continued spiraling out of control. I mean, this really isn't news. It's not big news, or on a scale of 1 to 10, it's fairly low. I'm not making light of domestic violence or anything like that, but it's just another continuation of his bad decisions.
So compare that to, like, say someone in the league like Vontaze Burfict, who's got the bad reputation over times for quote unquote being a dirty player. With people with a history that's starting to develop, if these situations, as minor as they may be, but does it get magnified because of the history?
I think it does. A little over a year ago, he he was throwing furniture out of his condominium and almost,
killed a kid,
almost smushed a little kid with a vase.
So do you think there's more to this than what meets the eye? As far as, I mean, because like you said, there's been a lot of stuff that has started to surface out of Antonio Brown camp over the last 2 years that just simply wasn't there before.
It really makes you scratch your head whether, there's some Steeler fans that speculate a little, with the CTE. Me personally, I just can't jump on the CTE bandwagon right away. I can't, I just look at this as simply bad behavior, I'm not going to call it some kind of mental illness, not related to CTE. I'm not going to say he's mentally ill on some other capacity. The guy just needs some counseling, or I don't know what he needs.
Maybe it's anger management. That's and it's as easy as that. I don't think that he maliciously tried to throw furniture out the window and try to hit a kid.
No,
or anything like that. I just think that it's just maybe his temper gets the best of him from time to time. And guys in that spotlight, they ought to understand that their actions get magnified and looked upon under such a big microscope.
Mm-hmm. Now, will this, will the Steelers finally say, okay, we're going to cut you? I don't think that's going to happen, because I think they're still going to look to trade him. Is this going to hurt his trade value? I personally don't think so.
I don't think so at this point either.
If it was more serious, and I'm not saying pushing down a woman isn't serious. I'm just saying that he didn't kick her on the floor. He didn't punch her in the face. He didn't drag her out of the elevator.
But you're right. You summed it up great. It just comes down to bad decision making. Guys, you got to be better. Just be better. That's all that comes down to. Should be that easy, but who am I? I don't make millions and millions of dollars. And
how about if we break out our magnifiers now on the quarterback, the 2019 quarterback class that's going to be coming in, and on the teams that definitely could use a quarterback.
Yeah, so we'll run down a list of teams that jump off the pages to us, at least right away, of teams that are kind of and potentially in need of a quarterback answer. First one, let's look at the Washington Redskins. And what happened with Alex Smith last year was just gruesome. Flippy broke his leg. I'm sure a lot of people out there that are listening to this have seen it. But it was so bad, he may never even play again. It was so bad. He had 3 surgeries because of not only the leg break, but he got some bad infections in there shortly afterwards.
Yeah, and that's, they showed him in this gigantic brace before a hockey game a couple of weeks ago.
I saw that.
And
it looked like one of those halos that people wear from time to time that have those rods going into their head, into their skull. That's what it looked like down on his leg. He had these rods going from this brace in there just to hold things together. And then it just compounded everything with that infection getting in there as well. So even if he is and can play again, we don't even know if he's going to be ready by the start of 2019.
And that's going to be a real big if he can ever play again.
And what do we know about Colt McCoy, his backup? He suffered a
broken leg as well. So, and they're talking about how they like Josh Johnson. Mm-hmm. Well, Josh Johnson hadn't been in the league in 3 years. Come on.
Yeah,
what's there really to like?
They called him off the couch, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But we just talked about Darius Guice, so they're going to want to be able to protect that asset and go out and get a quarterback, take a little bit of heat and pressure off Guice, because if they continue to have someone like Josh Johnson back there, they're just going to key on Guice, and it could be a bad and painful season for the Washington Redskins coming up. Agreed. Another team that could be on the lookout is the Miami Dolphins. Lots of reports down there swirling around about Ryan Tannehill. Is he going to be back?
I don't think so. I think the writing is on the wall that he is on his way out. It's going to be the new regime down there, and I think he's gone. Now the question is, there's going to be quarterbacks like Foles and maybe Teddy Bridgewater.
Bortles.
and Bortles, floating around. They could take the spot. So a lot of that's going to be up in the air for the next month to see. Another guy that could actually be looking for a job would possibly be Andy Dalton. So the Bengals might be the next. Could be looking for a signal caller themselves.
That would not shock me. You got a new quarterback-minded incoming head coach. It's clean slate it, right?
Yeah. I mean, you finally get rid of Marvin Lewis after, 9 failure years of trying to win a playoff game. And, yeah, Andy Dalton he just seems to be regressing there as the years go by.
And the knock on him has been pretty tried and true over the years. Like, he can't win the big game. When the big lights, the bright lights come on, like, he fails to perform. Like, he does well in regular season Sunday, like afternoon and early games. But if it's Monday night, Sunday night, playoff game, he disappears.
He's just so doggone mediocre. He so blah, so average, so, not electrifying at all.
No, he is not. That's for sure. Another guy who's really not that electrifying. Unfortunately, this is coming to my favorite hometown of Denver Broncos. Journeyman Case Keenum. He flopped. Flip in his inaugural season in Denver. What do you think? Is he safe for one more year?
I don't
Maybe
think
potentially
so.
groom a young quarterback. Broncos drafting at 10.
Boy. We'll talk about this a little more once we get into the quarterback aspect.
I think we do take a chance at quarterback in that first round. Whether or not we have to move up, I don't think we do. We may even could trade down, possibly. But I see Case Keenum as being there for our 2019 season, and we go out and draft a young quarterback. I see him being there to help try to, groom and condition this rookie.
Yeah, and it's going to be, who falls in love with some of these quarterbacks and who doesn't, and where they're actually going to draft, what position. It's so hard to say right now on. We'll definitely give our thoughts on these quarterbacks tonight, but our thoughts don't matter when the Denver Broncos are on the clock at 10.
Exactly. And our thoughts are probably going to change as we move along this journey a little further, too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, our thoughts definitely aren't going to be set in stone. Yeah, we talked about Blake Bortles, the Jaguars moving on from him. But, could he stay for another year and groom a quarterback? Or could they bring in possibly – an old guy like a McCown or go back to Matt Moore.
Or make a run at Foles.
Yeah.
These guys are drafting. Are they drafting, 5th?
The Jaguars, I do believe, are
they 5th?
7th.
Okay, they're 7th. So we have, and then the next team we're going to talk about, the New York Giants, about Eli Manning. I mean, we all know that is a glaring hole that they're going to want to fill, and they're going to want to fill it fast. But they don't want to just jump the gun. They want to go up and grab somebody that they feel can kind of that's potentially ready to come in and contribute right out the chute. Because we saw Eli Manning and his production towards the end of the year. It just seemed like, one, their offensive line was just a bunch of revolving doors. Like, those guys were getting back and in on Eli Manning before he could hit his 5th step back. And how many times did the camera zoom in on Eli as he's coming up off the ground, and he had the Eli Manning face like, like he's got to get tired of that, So go out and grab a quarterback that not only you can learn from one of the best quarterbacks.
If they keep Eli.
Exactly. And there's a mock draft of, there's several mock drafts out there or whatever, but one of the guys, we'll talk about a couple of these guys that could come up there and potentially be an impact player in the first year.
And, the Giants is actually a pretty premier spot to land in. You got Barkley, you got Beckham, you got Evan Ingram sitting there. That's a heck of a trio for fantasy football, offensive weapons. Two teams that I think Oakland kept Carr on the roster today, so I believe he had some guaranteed money writing with that. It might have been his season was guaranteed. I didn't write it down, but so it appears he's staying in Oakland. The Jameis Winston talk moving out of Tampa Bay seemed to stop, right?
Yeah, I fully expect Jameis to stay there, and I fully expect his play to get better with Bruce Arians coming to town.
Well, I think Arians will be a little more forgiving on the interceptions than the previous regime was.
No doubt about it. I think it's only spelling good things for Winston and Tampa Bay, especially if they make that splash landing and go get Bell. That's going to be an offense that could be fun to watch if that happens.
You're absolutely right there, Jarvis. With Evans being there, O.J. Howard and Brait, and even an aging Deshaun Jackson, and if they get Humphreys to come back, or if they go in another direction, who's the other kid? Is it Goodwin? Chris Godwin. He's a young talent. Yes,
good looking wide receiver. He's got a lot of potential there too.
So let's roll right into our really fun section for the night. One thing that we've definitely done some homework on and definitely enjoyed watching some tape on these guys is the quarterbacks that are coming in that could be filling some of these landing spots at with the Giants at 6 or
the Jags at 7,
the Jags at
Denver
7,
at 10,
possibly Bengals at 11, Miami at 13, which Washington at 15, which one, some of these teams are going to be moving up into the top 5 to potentially grab some of these quote unquote gems.
It'll be interesting to see what happens because we don't have these standout quarterback names like we've had in the past. So how aggressive some of these teams get during the NFL draft with moving up to try to grab one of these guys, I don't think that we're going to see the big moves that we've seen in the past, just because I don't think the talent pool is quite is there as it has been before.
NFL teams are always greedy for, desperate for quarterback talent.
That's exactly right.
And with not many free agents out there,
so they're going to have to do something, Mm-hmm. So whether we see these outlandish moves and these crazy trades and stuff, I mean, just with the history of the NFL draft, that's just a given. Something crazy is probably going to end up happening. But teams going up, moving up 10, 7, 8 spots or whatever it could be all the way up to number 1. I don't know if we'll see that and grab a quarterback at number 1. We'll see how the combine plays out. But one of the guys that's going to be in discussion for a top, a high first-round pick is going to be Dwayne Haskins, quarterback at Ohio State. This guy's 6'3", 220, third-year sophomore out of again, Ohio State. The knock on him is very similar to what happened with Mitch Trubisky. Trubisky only had 13 career starts coming out into the draft, and Haskins only has 14. But in those 14 games, he's got a 70% completion, rate. He threw for 4,831 yards and 50 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. He led the team to a Big Ten title and a win in the Rose Bowl. I watched a little bit of film on this guy, a little bit more than I had been able to during the course of the college season. This guy's got a big arm and throws a pretty good deep ball. He's got the ability to throw sharp, fast, accurate passes. But what I really like about this guy is his ability to throw the ball with touch. Like, he can put that touch on it when he needs to. He doesn't just sit there and rifle passes to these guys. He shows some great anticipation on his throw, has a ton of great physical attributes. He's very accurate while stepping up in the pocket, I noticed. And his ability to scramble and throw, but the only thing is with that is, like, his ability to scramble and throw on the run. Like, I hadn't seen a lot of that. But he doesn't seem to be, super fast. He is elusive. So depending on where he goes, he could step in to be a contributor right away. I think this guy's rising high on my list.
So you're saying he's closer to Big Ben than Deshaun Watson?
Yeah.
On his elusiveness.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like,
maybe I should have went with somebody. Should I have gone with, Drew Bledsoe and Michael Vick instead?
But I really like the way that this kid played, and he shows a ton of promise. And I think that if he goes to the right situation, like we just talked about, I think that the New York Giants make a lot of sense.
It's just the scary thing. 14 games, really played 1 year.
He's really raw.
It is very raw. So, and none of these, not many of these quarterbacks, you're not going to hear these these guys compared to, well, look at this. Here comes the next Andrew Luck, or, even like a Deshaun Watson, or I don't even think there's, is there Mahomes here? I compare a lot of these guys to more of the Josh Rosens, maybe the Allens, the kid with the Jets that I'm forgetting his name, of course.
Darnold. But in fairness, though, to like Pat Mahomes, he wasn't super highly regarded coming out of the draft either. You were hearing names way above him. And when the Chiefs, I think, what did they end up taking him 12th overall?
But they moved up.
They moved up because they liked what they saw. They worked with him early and often, and they fell in love.
And he got to sit for, almost the first year.
Exactly.
Which most quarterbacks don't get that anymore. Because
teams are so desperate.
Teams want to get the fans excited. They want to throw these rookies to the hounds and see how well they produce.
And sometimes that's what you got to do. And that makes that's the best decision. But as of right now, there's not anybody, and again, this all could change, but as of right now, there's not anything that's really jumping off this board. To me, it's like saying, okay, this guy needs to go right away, and he needs to go to this team because he goes in. He's starting from day one. I don't think we see that quite yet.
Well, I mean, it depends on these teams, With the Giants, he wouldn't have to start week 1. With Washington,
maybe
it's a different matter.
Right.
With Jacksonville, that's
maybe
a different matter. So the next guy up on the block is Drew Lock, quarterback out of Missouri. 6'3", 226. He performed well in the Senior Bowl. I'm sorry. He performed well in the practices, but not in the Senior Bowl itself.
Ooh.
Started 8 games as a freshman with a 49% completion rate, 4 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Started 12 games as a sophomore, 54.6% completion rate, 23-10 TD to interception ratio. Started 13 games as a junior, 57.8% completion rate, 44 touchdowns to 13 interceptions. Started 13 games as a senior, 62.9% completion rate, 28 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, 8 yards per attempt, which isn't. I'm sorry. Yeah, 8 yards per attempt. 55, but he doesn't really rush much. 55 rushes for 175 yards and 6 TDs rushing. Some pros on him: intriguing skill set. He's big, athletic, and possesses plenty of arm strength. He flashes good pocket awareness and can buy time with his legs. He's definitely not Deshaun Watson, but he has a little quickness to move outside of the pocket a bit. Has the arm strength to make any throw on the field, and good pocket presence. And the cons on him: he's a gunslinger mentality, which gets him into trouble with his interceptions.
As does anyone.
Lacks consistency at times,
as any gunslinger is.
Deep ball accuracy is definitely an issue. He has probably more of a chance of throwing the ball out of bounds on deep throws than he does actually hitting the wide receiver. And here's what's going to get him into trouble in the NFL is locking onto one wide receiver.
You know who you just reminded me of with those last 4 cons? Jay Cutler.
And there is a lot of talk with him, I believe, being compared between Cutler or Mahomes on the deal.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
So
that makes a lot of sense to me because Cutler was guilty of that, of all of those.
Yeah. And, this is a kid where, at least he did play in a pretty decent conference in the SEC. And so he did play up, against some of the better teams. So that's one thing with him. My thing that always sticks in the back of my head is Missouri quarterback, Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah. Yeah. What I saw on the video, I wasn't a fan of his throwing motion. I think that's going to need some work too. I think it's a little long and drawn out, but overall, I mean, this guy shows some promise. We'll see what pans out there, but I think your analysis of him is pretty dead on.
We'll see what happens with him at the combine.
What about Kyler Murray, Flip? What can you tell us about him?
Kyler Murray. Hold on. Let me get to my notes here.
Now that he's officially declared for the NFL draft and he's not playing baseball, he's going to be one that's again, he's going to be high on the board as well.
Yeah, the thing with Kyler Murray, quarterback out of Oklahoma, 5'9", 195, little small guy. Boy, that's dinky for NFL quarterback standards. 2015, started three games as a freshman at A&M before transferring to Oklahoma. Set out 2016 because of the transfer rules. 2017, played behind Mayfield. He is truly an NFL player is he truly an NFL player as he played college baseball as well as splitting time? In his senior year, he completed 69%, 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 11.6 yards per attempt, 140 rushes, 1,001 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns. That's huge.
That's big.
But if you watch any kind of tape in the Big 12, you realize there's no defense played in that league.
That is correct.
If you were a shutdown cornerback in that league, you would probably go first overall, because all those quarterbacks do is just chuck the ball up and close their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that compare him to Russell Wilson because of his athleticism
and his size, obviously.
And his size, yeah.
Yeah.
But the pros on him: compact delivery, arm strength, okay pocket presence, just not great. But he does get the ball out quickly. Big winner. Oklahoma went 12-2, and he won the Heisman.
Kid's a stellar athlete.
Yes.
He just knows how to get it done. And that's something that can't be measured.
Some cons on him. More generally accurate than pinpoint. So he's getting it to a general vicinity instead of, wow, look at him just throw through that window.
Having those receivers go make the play.
Yeah. His size, you got to look at his size. Plus, there's limited time on the field. Here's another guy that's barely played college football. I really think whoever drafts him has got to let him sit for a year. He's got to learn. I don't think you can throw this kid into, and even if he goes in the first round, I think you have to let him percolate for a year.
I totally agree. And if he ends up in a situation like with the New York Giants where he's not getting any offensive line help and he's having to take those hits at 5'9" and that size, that's not ideal for someone like him.
Well, I think what you're going to see so much is he's going to turn into just a complete run-first quarterback. Mm-hmm. He'll drop back 3 steps and boom, he's off running somewhere.
You're going to have to do that with those quick slants and get that ball out quick, or dump passes, tight ends, slots, running backs. Those are going to be his best friends for a while until he gets, feeling a little bit more comfortable back there. But I mean, who am I to judge the kid's size? I mean, he's been a winner. He's played very, very well. He's obviously super talented. But it just worries me at the NFL on that level, being that size and then taking those shots, which quarterbacks always do. he's not Big Ben back there.
No.
Fighting off, defensive linemen and linebackers that are coming at him.
And, this is not the NFL when, Doug Flutie was running around, 20 whatever years ago either, I mean, you got linemen that, that are running 4.9s that are pushing 300 pounds. So
that will be interesting. I hope he does well because, again, he's forfeiting a long and lucrative career in the MLB because we know size doesn't really matter that much in that particular sport. Career longevity there has an edge. So he's confident. He's supremely confident in himself to bypass all that and come out for the NFL draft. So I'm rooting for him. I really am.
Okay, I'll root for him a little bit. About 5'9" worth.
Oh, goodness. Okay, we'll move on to Daniel Jones, or as I like to call Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones. Flip has no idea what I'm referencing there, folks.
No idea.
No idea who Dr. Jones is.
Nope. Oh, well, you say it that way, and okay, now we get it. It's Indiana Jones.
There
okay.
you go.
One of the worst Indiana Jones movies out there, by the way.
What?
Oh,
that's it.
We'll save that for another show.
Yes, we'll talk about that later. Come on now. But yeah, Daniel Jones, quarterback out of Duke. This guy's a fourth-year junior, 6'5", 220. This dude's a big kid. He's got 37 career starts under his belt. In those 37 career starts, Flip, he's thrown 52 touchdowns to 29 interceptions. In 2016, played 12 games at a 62.8, 6.6 yards per catch average. 2017 completion. I'm sorry. 2017, he had 13 games, 56.7 or 5.9 yards per completion. And 2018, he played in 11 games. So, he's
and his completion rate went up to 60.5%.
Yeah, completion percent went up. So he's right there. He's got an accurate arm. But the thing with this guy is that playing at Duke, Flip, he doesn't play with a ton of talent around him. But he's another one of these guys that's another beneficiary of Herbert staying in school, not declaring for the draft. This guy, he's a tough guy. Dual threat guy, can extend plays with his feet, can run the ball. He rushed in one of the games, actually, he rushed for 186 yards and threw for 361 against North Carolina. That's a big game.
That's pretty impressive for a guy his size.
Absolutely. And like I said, he's tough. Like, did you know he broke his collarbone in his left non-throwing shoulder and only missed 2 games before he came back. This guy's tough. Like,
that is pretty
tough.
He's
pretty resilient. NFL scouts are comparing him to Carson Wentz. He's a great kid, great family, makes all the throws. He's smart, does have just a little bit of injury history. In the Senior Bowl, he was the Senior Bowl MVP, went 8 for 11 with 115 yards and a touchdown. I like what I see out of this kid.
Boy, I look at that completion rate in college, and I just kind of cringe. He's barely over 60% his senior year, has just 22 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's a lot of interceptions he's got underneath his belt. He's got 29 interceptions in 3 years at the college level. I understand not having the talent around.
That's
him,
what I was just about to hint to.
But did Josh Allen have the talent at Wyoming last year? Or not last year, but his senior year in college.
That's fair enough.
I think there's a lot of kids that quarterbacks out there that have to probably throw to the same crappy talent, but I think do more with it. I think this guy is going to be a big polarizing guy with a lot of people. A lot of people are really, really liking him. I haven't watched a lot of tape on him, and so I just kind of base it off the little tape I've seen and his stats, and it just.
I actually really like this guy. In fact, some of these NFL guys are talking with him being another one of the beneficiaries of Herbert staying in. I think that you could really see his stock rise, and some people are thinking that he may actually end up being the #1 quarterback off the board.
I've seen that too. Walter Football a site that I enjoy reading, has him as their number one quarterback still. I don't think they have him in number one quarterback in their mock drafts, though. Another polarizing quarterback is Ryan Finley, quarterback out of NC State. 6'4", 212. He's kind of a poor man's Joe Flacco. 2015 ankle injury. He broke his ankle, ended his season, and then transferred to NC State. 2016, 13 games, 60.4% completion rate, 7.6 yards per completion. 18 touchdowns with 8 interceptions. 2017, 13 games, 65.1% completion rate, 7.4 yards per completion. 17 touchdowns with 6 interceptions. 2018, 13 games, 67.4%. And then 8.1 yards per completion. But his numbers jumped on touchdowns, but interceptions as well. 25 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. His analysis is just all over the boards on what people think about him. He's accurate at times. Maybe the best pro-style quarterback in the draft, because so many of these other quarterbacks really don't run in a pro-style offense. Kid's a genius. He has 3 degrees.
Wow.
He had a good Senior Bowl. Some of the cons: accuracy under pressure is poor. Locks onto primary targets and does not go through progressions well. Not ideal arm strength for the NFL. Game manager, not playmaker. I read that and heard that a number of times. And, that's just, I don't think you want to. Do you want to draft a quarterback to be the face of your franchise when that might be the quote that people say about him?
No, that is definitely not ideal whatsoever.
I mean, we're not talking Alex Smith game manager.
I was gonna bring that up.
Uh-huh.
And Alex Smith did just fine, but he wasn't notorious for being a playmaker or anything like that. I think that he finally was able to get into an offense and a system where he was able to throw the ball deep, and he let people make those plays on their own, help him out, make him look good. Because we saw in his career, he had just that one flyer season. That was it. We've talked about that.
We've talked about him.
One thing that gets me on this though is for his pros, he's got a quick release. But the con is that he locks on the primary targets and doesn't go through his progressions well. That is scary to me. So unless his primary target that he's going to lock on right away is, your check down guy, how's he going to read those defenses?
And he does have a number of interceptions, so he is forcing the ball. It's just kind of like the epitome of, boy, how weak this class is. And you want to go over our last quarterback here?
Yeah, so the last guy we'll talk about tonight is Will Grier, quarterback out of West Virginia. Guy's 6'2", 221. 2017, he played in 11 games, had a 64.4% completion percentage, 9 yards per completion, 34 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. 2018, played in 11 games, 67% completion percentage, 9.7 yards per completion, and 37 touchdowns and 8 touchdowns. So after this kid redshirting, he redshirted in Florida in 2014. He actually led the Gators to a 6-0 start in 2015. Then he was busted for he was suspended for testing positive for performance-enhancing substance, which he says was an over-the-counter supplement. Ended up in West Virginia. That's where he started to put up bonker numbers, Flip. 76 touchdowns in 2 seasons. Unbelievable. Pushing for a possible first-round pick till his poor Senior Bowl performance. Skipped the bowl game. People are comparing him to Andy Dalton, which do you want to be compared to Andy Dalton?
Andy Dalton was a high second-round pick with upside. He just never really, matured into that upside.
He flashes at times.
He flashes at times.
Not when you want him to, but this guy's pros, quick release. Very accurate, too. Cons is he's got average arm strength. Comes from a spread offense and not under center much. And his decision-making has been subject to doubt. What do you think?
I think it just, screams mediocrity for this, not for only him, but, for most of this draft class. I mean, here's a guy who definitely has some upside to him, but, you look at a lot of his negatives, and that's screams, I'm going to be a backup in the NFL. I'm not going to lead your franchise to 2 to 3 Super Bowls in a 10-year career. And my analysis might be off base here, but I mean, average arm strength in the NFL, that's a huge negative with, speedy players on both sides of the ball. You gotta hit those tough out throws or the seam routes, and you gotta throw to certain spots, and you gotta get it there quick before those cornerbacks that run a 4.33 get there.
We saw that. Like, you absolutely, if you have a window, you have to get it there, and you have to exploit that right away in the NFL. We saw that in the Super Bowl. That play where Jared Goff, if he throws that ball 2-3 seconds earlier to Brandon Cooks, the end zone, that's a touchdown.
Yep.
But it gave McCourty an opportunity to run 20, 30 yards to break it up at the last second. He sees that earlier. It's a touchdown. You don't get those opportunities that often in the NFL. You get them a lot more often in college, I'll promise you that. So if you don't have it in you and trained to be able to see those right away, that is going to be something that you're going to want to take your time to develop. You'll get there, but you can't rush these kids and expect that type of stuff to just happen overnight.
I fully agree. Do we want to make a few predictions on what round?
I don't know, man. My predictions have just been garbage lately.
Oh, we don't have to make an actual bet on this. I would hate to take more of your money for my my Morgan habit.
I think if you were to ask me right now, again,
how many quarterbacks do you think go in the first round?
I think 3.
3. I agree.
I think Daniel Jones will go first. I think Kyler Murray will go second, and I think Will Grier will go third.
Oh, what about Haskins? You don't want to rethink that?
Yeah, I do want to rethink that, actually. I think Haskins...
Wait, did we have a bet there?
No. Nope.
Shoot.
Nope.
Okay.
There's erases. I erased it. My apologies.
We'll take care of that in post-production, right?
My apologies. I think Dwayne Haskins will go number 1 overall.
Agreed.
Yes. I think Daniel Jones will be right behind him. Man, do 4 quarterbacks go? I think there is. I think 4 quarterbacks are going to go because I think there's 4 teams out there that need him.
Oh boy. While I get your point, this is kind of like your point on Le'Veon Bell going to Indy. While I see your point,
you're going to hit me with a dose of reality.
I'm going to say that I'm not even sure if more than 2 of these quarterbacks are NFL quality, franchise-worthy quarterbacks. I'll go with Haskins and Locke on this. And I think Kyler Murray gets drafted on his intangibles alone and his athleticism. I really don't think he's going to make it in the NFL, though. I really don't. I think he's just too small. How does he see over? How does he see over and around linemen that are 6'7"?
But they're 6'7" guys in college too. Like, my thing is yeah, it's a knock on him, but how many times have we heard this story?
No,
Russell
think
Wilson's too small. Drew Brees is too small. When was the last time people had said, okay, this guy is too small to play in the NFL, and it actually came true?
But I think
Danny Woodhead, Dion Lewis, Drew Brees.
Well,
Darren Sproles.
But okay,
like all
okay.
these
Now
guys.
quarterback's way different though.
Exactly. I agree.
And
I agree.
Brees is what, 6 foot? I mean, that's 3 inches difference.
But if you're quick,
I believe all his linemen in college were under 5'10".
But if you're quick and you can scramble and extend plays, and you run 7 foot to the right or the left, you're going to get around those big uglies.
You're going to get crushed by that defensive end staying at home. You're going to get pummeled by J.J. Watt that's sitting there waiting for you to roll out his direction, or his brother T.J. They're gonna be waiting at home for that to happen.
Me personally, this is what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for my Broncos to somehow come out of it with getting Haskins. I think he's my top guy. If we can't get Haskins, I'd really like to see Daniel Jones. That's what I would like to see.
I would like to see the Broncos get Daniel Jones as well. I think that would be a
huge mistake for them.
No, I think that'd be a great mistake for them. I don't think the AFC would have to worry about the Broncos for a good 3-4 years.
They might not have to anyway. But, hey, things are looking up. We got Fangio. That defense is going to look solid, and we all know defense wins championships. Yeah. I tell you what, we didn't beat the Carolina Panthers on Peyton Manning's arm.
Still living on old glory. Gotcha.
Oh, yeah, 3 years ago. When was the last time the Steelers won?
Yeah, it's a little more than 3 years ago. But,
okay, now that our trash talk between each other's over.
Yeah, I personally don't like this class from top to bottom. And for me, in one of the dynasty leagues I'm in that is an extremely quarterback-heavy league, I do have the first round pick, the first overall pick. Because I basically dumped my season, waited for Herbert to come out. Herbert said,
"Namaste, I'm good."
Yeah, he showed me the bird, and he dropped the F-bomb right in my face and said, no, that's not going to happen. And so now I'm sitting here and going to wait. Probably Herbert, I'm assuming. If he goes first, I will not take Daniel Jones first. I will not take Kyler Murray.
So here we are. I mean, we're talking in the grand scheme of things. Like what we're here to do is to talk about fantasy football and some of the implications. So when you're looking at this quarterback class, and obviously we didn't cover all of them, but we covered some of the more notable ones and the guys that are going to be looked upon as potential
first two rounds. Yeah. There might be a couple other kids thrown in there, but
if you are okay, so when you look at these guys, is there a guy that jumps off the board to you as someone that's going to go land in the perfect position and be next year's Baker Mayfield?
The only kid I could really say is Haskins.
I agree, and I think that his landing spot to be able to maximize that type of potential, I think would be the Giants.
The problem with that is Eli Manning. The problem with that would be Eli Manning. For me, I would probably want him to go to. Oh boy,
say it.
I would say Miami, but Devontae Parker would just. I'd just cry over it. I think Devontae Parker's a free agent.
I think at this point we can put Devontae Parker's fantasy value to bed once and for all.
We'll talk about that more, yes. But no. Really, I think the best landing spot for him would really be probably Jacksonville. With their young wide receivers down there.
They don't have any star players, and their running back is questionable to even be on the team.
I still think that's so overblown. So,
yeah. Well, you never know.
So, the thing with that, if we're talking longer term, I think the Giants would be a better spot, definitely. But for
both of them are super needy right now, though. Mm-hmm. We can agree on that.
But Jacksonville has the defense to get the ball back a lot quicker than the Giants.
Do they?
Dumpster fire. Well,
this year.
I don't know what happened to their defense this year. It was kind of strange.
Yeah.
So, alrighty. Well, I think since we're definitely over time as usual, any last thoughts?
No, it was it was kind of fun to dig into some of these guys that we just don't really know that much about. I mean, it certainly helped me out quite a bit because all the time that we spend during the year, during the football season, is primarily allocated to the NFL. So I don't get an opportunity to look into a lot of these guys, deeply, analytically, and all that stuff. So it's kind of cool to sit back after everything's all said and done, see what these guys are all about, what they're capable of, some of their pros and cons. And so it's going to help us out, and I hope that we can help you guys out just a little bit in our analysis of it. But going forward, next week we're going to talk about the running backs. Some of our more notable running backs that are going to be coming out of this draft. And I think that the way things are looking right now, I think it's actually going to be primarily dominated at least in the first round with defensive prospects. But hey, we need to make sure that we're a fantasy show, so we need to talk about fantasy implications.
And with running backs, we know that it doesn't matter if, generally the higher they get drafted, the Gurley, the Zekes, generally those are the guys that are going to produce over the third round guys. But that's, not saying some of the third round guys definitely have been studs, or even the undrafted guys, which we definitely won't talk about those guys next week.
Like Phillip Lindsay, right?
Yeah. If you're looking for us to discuss the next Phillip Lindsay next week, it's not going to happen.
No.
So, it was great, getting definitely out of our comfort zone and getting into speculating about the quarterbacks that are going to be drafted in, little more than 10 weeks.
Yeah, it's right around the corner. And that'll be fun when we can actually sit there and watch what these guys do during the combine. I know you're not particularly the biggest fan of the NFL combine.
I love the combine. I really do.
And judging people off of the results of it, I really dig it. I get into it. So
I like more watching them run through their drills than I do, necessarily their 40 times, whether they're a spark player
or the standing broad jump. Mm-hmm. I get that. To me, that's pointless.
So, okay. Well, let's wrap up another fantastic show with Jarvis and myself. And we appreciate everybody listening, all 400,000 of you or so.
Yeah, I just need a couple more and we'll get to that million mark.
Yes. And then we can retire and live off of our YouTube royalties, right? We've already turned down Sirius for, doing a podcast for them because they weren't offering guaranteed years. So no way. So be sure to hop on and give us a shout out on Twitter at INT StreamPod and shoot us an email. Tell us we're doing a great job. Tell us we're doing a crappy job. Just, whatever. Send us a question. We'll answer it on the air.
What you'd like us to cover for future shows, some of the things that we're leaving out, some of the things that we could add, that type of stuff.
Yes, exactly. Intentional streaming at gmail.com is the email address. So we appreciate everybody taking some time and listening to us. And like Jarvis said, next week we'll get into the running backs. We'll cover what little news and notes there will be between now and then. And we'll go from there. So, alrighty. Well, thanks everybody for listening. We definitely enjoyed, and we will catch you next week.
See you next week, guys. Take care.
See ya.